Welcome back to V8 TV. The plan's in place. It's time to get to work on ThundersTruck. When it was finally go time, our crew brought in both trucks into the shop and started to disassemble the 2002 truck and prepare the 69 to make the swap. On the 02 truck, we had already started it. We knew it ran. It had a transmission leak and some other minor problems with it, but it was a good truck to start with. We wanted to leave all the electronics in place. We wanted to leave all the brakes and all that stuff because we were going to reuse all that in the other truck. Once we lifted off the body and cab off the 2002 chassis, we rolled the 69 truck over on the other side, and in this case we decided to leave the bed in place and just unbolt the cab, and hopefully we could roll the whole chassis out assembled. And much to our surprise, we were able to roll that 2002 chassis underneath our 69 and lower the 69 down on top of it. And it was surprisingly close. This is definitely not a bolt-in. You can't just drop the new body and bed onto the old frame, but it really wasn't that far off.
The motor fits between the inner fenders, barely, but we've got our first fitment issue. This opening in the back of the cab is narrower on the 69 than the width of the Lightning frame. So we're going to have to cut this open a little bit. Adam will have to make us a new panel or something to make a nice pinch weld there again.
We noticed we had to modify the front cab mounts because the holes were off just a hair.
This here is the core support mount from the Lightning. This bolt here is where the hole in the core support of the F100 is. Looks like it's going to land in the frame rail, which is good and bad. This frame rail is actually 2 C-channels with a weld all the way up here. So drilling a hole here is going to be a little tough. We may have to drill a hole in the bottom to get a socket up, or weld a nut in the top of this frame, open up the hole up here for our adjustment. We'll see what works best there.
But my main concern was the track width, meaning the outside of the wheel to the outside of the wheel on the 2002 truck wouldn't be anywhere near the 69. And it turned out that even with the modern truck offset on the wheels, the track width was almost right on. It pushed those wheels just to the outside of the 69 fenders, and it looked really, really good. At the back of the cab, we noticed the major difference here, and that is that the 2002 chassis design is not a flat frame like our 69 was.
As we know, the bed sits way too high. The owner didn't like the idea of putting a false floor in, so that's where we may get into raising the cab up a little bit more. We can get 2.5 inches out of the bed here by knocking a notch in these cross sills and setting the floor directly on the frame. But we still have the length problem. The Lightning originally had a 5-inch longer wheelbase than the stock 69. We got rid of some of that wheelbase discrepancy by moving the wheel forward a little bit, but we still have a good 4.5 inches. So our next step is we're going to cut all the rivets out of the rear suspension and move the whole thing forward. See here, this is where this shackle used to be. I went and ground the rivets off. You see, this is one of them. Did that to all 4 shackles, and then I measured 5 inches forward to compensate for the 5-inch difference in wheelbase. Slid the whole axle assembly forward, and I've just tack welded this in place. Ultimately, we're probably going to grade 8 bolt these, and then we'll tack weld the grade 8 bolts so they can't come out, and probably do some better tack welds to make sure these never move, since they used to be riveted, and rivets are much stronger than a bolt. So the next step is we're going to set the bed back on here and see if we've at least got the wheelbase lined up with the wheel arch. If we have, then we're going to pop all the rivets out of these cross members, move them forward, and shorten the frame.